Well, anyways, hello, Tong. How are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So, I was reading through your bio. It sounds very interesting. And you've got a book out called The House Filler that we're going to be talking about in a minute. Before we get to your book, I'd like to just hear a little bit about your backstory. It says that you were born and raised in China and then moved to Canada, to Saskatchewan, right? Why did you pick Saskatchewan?
Well, because I was pursuing my master's degree and in agriculture economics, and the University of Saskatchewan have a really good agriculture economics department, and they provide RA, research assistantship. That's how I got to Saskatoon.
Well, what part of China are you originally from?
Uh, Xi- Xi'an City, Shanxi province. You know where they dug out the terracotta soldiers and horses? The first emperor who united China was buried there. That's where I came from.
Oh, okay. I've seen pictures of the terracotta soldiers. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Is that a cold winter place?
It's not as cold as Calgary.
I don't think anywhere is as cold as Calgary, but
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Like in the winter, at the most we're looking at -10, -15 will be maximum. Mostly -5, -8.
so have you been a writer your whole life? Were you writing in China before you came to Canada?
I started to write poems when I was in college, but in Chinese. Never a professional writer, and my educational background has nothing to do with creative writing. So I just learned the craft. Actually started in 2006. I still have my daytime job, which is totally different from writing. You have to have a job to support yourself, but no, it's a learned skill.
Okay. What is your daytime job, if I can ask?
I'm a certified financial planner.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So the writing is sort of your creative outlet, your creative release, yeah?
Yeah, writing to me is not only an interest or passion, it's a calling. It's my lifetime dream. I wanted to become a writer when I was in junior high.
And at the time in junior high school, were you just writing poetry or what were you writing?
No, I was not good at poetry at all. In Chinese, in the subject, right, we have Chinese, and there's a writing assignments every week. So each week, like the following week, the teacher would choose two or three best pieces and to read to the entire class. And my writing was always chosen. So I was known as a good writer or storyteller, but more for essays, nonfiction, not fiction. I didn't start fiction writing until again 2006
Oh, okay.
in Canada in English.
In English. All right.
Yeah,
Let me ask you something about the difference between the languages. I mean, obviously they're immense, but in terms of if you were writing a poem, say, in
yeah,
Chinese,
yeah.
is the structure of the poem going to be different than it would be if you're writing it in English in terms of are there different rules? Like people in China would look at your poem, if you took an English poem and translated it directly to Chinese, it wouldn't be the same thing as if you wrote it in Chinese to start with. Do you understand what I'm
You're right.
saying?
The modern poetry in China is pretty much structure wise is pretty much the same as English poems. So only the ancient Chinese poems they have very strict rules. Everybody has to follow. That is so hard. I mean, nowadays very few people actually write in an ancient form of Chinese poetry. Some still do. You have to learn how to do it. Not only it has to rhyme, but in each sentence, not only rhyme at the end of the sentence, but for example, first the word has to rhyme. You follow strict rules, and then second two words and third one is just so complicated. I never know how to do it.
Well,
Yeah,
I know that Chinese has been simplified. There's a simplified version of it now that never used to
that's
be.
what I use.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that there's over 10,000 characters.
Easily
Easily.
over 10,000 characters.
How difficult was it for you to learn English?
It was really difficult because the differences between Chinese and English is much bigger than between, for example, German and the English and French and the English. So first of all, we don't have so many tenses. We have one tense. We only have current tense, like present tense. We don't have future tense, past tense. So that was, sorry about this. Oh, God. Yeah, that was really hard for us to write consistently in correct tense. Then we don't have singular or plural. Like we say one dog, two dogs, three dog. We don't say dogs. So again, it's you know theoretically you know what you should do, but sometimes you forget. Our verb doesn't change with the subject. So we say I do, he do, she do. All these differences and preposition, we use it differently than English-speaking people. So it's a huge challenge. It's so much harder for us to write in English, especially when you write fiction. It's even harder because the first thing you need to decide is what tense am I going to use in my novel? Do I use the present tense or past tense? Then you have to remember you need to do it consistently. But of course we don't. So then I have to hire freelance editors to correct all my grammatical mistakes.
Well, and then if you're writing in first person or third person, the tenses are going to change completely, right?
Exactly, yeah. So now even verbally, you may notice I probably still say things wrong, right? I probably mix with present tense and past tense, like mixed together while talking about my book. It's not easy.
Okay, one last thing, and then we'll pivot over to your book. I'm just curious about this. So you said there's only one tense. So if you said, I go to the store, but if you wanted to say, I went to the store yesterday, would you just say, I go to the store yesterday?
Exactly. I go to the store yesterday. So yesterday already defined when you went to store.
It
or
defines
I go
the tense.
To store tomorrow.
Yeah. Or I go tomorrow. I go last week, I go next year, whatever, exactly. Right?
Character-wise, like Chinese words are very difficult for English-speaking people to learn, but the grammar actually is much simpler, right? When you think about it, it's much simpler.
Well, if you lose all the tenses, that would make it easier.
I think. For sure.
I think so. Okay. Well, thank you for that lesson. I appreciate that. Always like to learn something new. So your book now is called The House Filler. Is this your first? This is a full novel, correct?
It's a full novel, yes.
Is this your first one?
First book of the trilogy, of the China trilogy, yes.
Oh, I see. Okay. And it's a fiction?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us a little about the story then.
The story is based on my grandmother's life events. And it's a historical fiction. The book follows the journey of Golden Phoenix from 1920 to 1966. So being illiterate and with bound feet, she started life, she got married much later than the average age. Way back when women got married at age 16 to 18. She didn't get married until age 26. And by then she lost the chance to find a young man to marry. So she ended up with a widower. So in Chinese culture, way back when a woman marries a widower, she's called a house filler. So that's where the book title came from. And she was also born at a time that a woman's beauty is defined not by her looks, but by the size of her feet. The tinier the feet, the more desirable this woman would be. So parents would bend their daughter's feet at age 4 or 5. Being a motherless child, she didn't get her feet bound until she was 6. So she didn't achieve the ideal golden water lily size, which is about 4 inches. In 4 inches. So that was another reason she had to marry a widower. And then she gave birth to 5 children. Then her husband passed away. Poverty forced her to give her teenager twins to the Red Army. Then by 1937, Japanese launched the full-scale invasion to China. By 1938, they arrived at her city, and she and her eldest son, and another adopted son has to escape from her hometown. But the story goes on. Basically, eventually they returned to their hometown, while her eldest son also joined the Nationalist Army. She and her adopted son returned to their hometown, but they suffered horrible ordeals from the traitor and the Japanese. So after she was raped by a Japanese soldier, she joined the communist underground network. The Japanese surrendered in 1945. Then the civil war erupted between the communists and the nationalists. When that war ended in 1949, the communists took power, and one of her twin sons, who was a loyal Chinese communist, was falsely accused as a traitor and was sentenced to death. So Golden Phoenix and her family has to find a way to save her son's life. I just left the ending out. I thought,
yeah, don't give it all away.
All part of the story.
Okay, now you said that this was book 1 in the trilogy. Have you finished the trilogy already?
Yes, I have.
So it's just going to be released per your publisher. Are you self-publishing, or do you have a publisher?
I have a traditional publisher, but we parted our way. So I'm still looking for a home for my next 2 books.
Has the House Filler been released?
Yes, it was released last October, and it has won it has won 2024 Independent Press Award for new fiction, and is also among the finalists for 2024 Canadian Book Club Award. And the final result will be announced in January of next year.
Let me go back to the writing again for a second. Then we just have to wind this down.
Okay.
So you wrote it in English to start,
Yes.
right? You didn't start in Chinese and then translate it?
I started in Chinese, but then I felt I couldn't continue in Chinese because I couldn't get any help, right? Critique, editor, publisher. So I scratched all that and restarted in English.
Were the challenges for you, again, the same thing, the tenses and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Preposition was even harder.
Prepositions.
Because
yeah.
There's no rules, right? It just, sometimes it doesn't make sense. In English, you say beating up, we say beating down, right? In English, you say in the street, we say on the street. You say in bed, we say on bed, You say horseback riding, we say riding horse. So it's just, there's no rules to follow.
You just kind of have to know. There's a lot of, the hardest ones for me are the words in English that are spelled different, that are pronounced the same, and the ones that are spelled the same and pronounced different, like read and read and so and sue. And I mean, it's just, those make me crazy. And English is my first language.
Yeah.
So
For example, like knife, why does it pronounce as knife? Why shouldn't it be knife, right? To us, it should be knife.
Right. What is the K doing there?
Exactly.
It doesn't belong there. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think on that, we're going to wind this down. So you said the book's been released, and it's won some awards. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Last question. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
It's under construction right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But the website, the domain name is tong-ge.com. It should be up, I think, in 2 weeks.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. It was nice chatting with you. Best of luck with your book series. Hope it does well.
Me too. Thank you, Doug. Really appreciate it.